Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. That's right, it's the first Friday of the month. And what do we do every month, gentlemen? We talk about fusion on that Friday, right? So today, as always, we are back once again with four really cool albums to talk about. Actually, it's five. The name of the show is almost a misnomer because actually we do talk about five albums. Actually, we talk about more because George talks about other stuff to kick us all off. So, of course, we got George Lamie and Eric Porter, the creators of the show. We've got back once again, Mr. Len Davis. What's going on? How's everybody doing?
Great to be here, guys.
Well,
Lovely.
good.
Good to have you. Good to have you.
Hello from Melbourne,
That's
the
right.
the
That's right.
bottom of the world.
Bottom of the world. It's always interesting when we have Len on the show because we have to really figure out, okay, when can we schedule this? Because it's usually either evening or late afternoon our time. And Len, you're just starting your day, right?
Yeah, 8 o'clock. Yeah,
8 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's like
been up since six though.
that's right. That's right.
For those that don't already do it, check out Len's radio show. It's on features on Mixcloud as well as allaboutjazz.com. Great
Yeah,
show.
great. Thank
Bitches
you.
Brew Radio.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. Yep. So before we get into the four square today, and I will tell everybody that it's all about the violin today. We know we know who here on the panel loves their violin.
Be
That's
Eric, wouldn't it?
before we get started on that, I'm going to turn it over to George to take us through the whole show, but he's going to talk about some new releases first. So George, take it away.
I actually only have one. Dissolve, Asterism. This is their seventh album. In general, they have that polished, kind of a glossy sheen kind of sound like Tricks or Cassiopeia. But I would say they are definitely have more meat on the bone than those bands. This is their seventh, and for my money, I've heard like four of them. This one's clearly the best. They're a Japanese quartet. They tend to do long records, and this one's no exception. It's 75 minutes, 12 songs. So, there are a couple lesser tracks, but they're easily navigated, and some of this stuff really rips. Big Dipper, Star Eater, Peace Sign, just among some of the really, really good tunes on here. Drummer Mayoki Yamamoto is a standout to me, one of the better Japanese drummers outside of Kozo. Um, I would suggest checking them out. The album is on YouTube. So if anybody wants to check them out, I highly suggest it. They're good stuff. And our friend Mr. Mike has already played them on his show. Have you played them yet, Len?
The first I've heard of it, buddy.
Okay.
Thanks for
Yeah.
letting me know. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike
Mm.
played a track over on his show and Absolute Fusion. So check them out. It's on YouTube. Dissolve Asterism.
Sounds
Good.
good.
That's it on new releases. I really haven't been picking a lot of stuff up.
That's the end of the year, So, but although usually there's like a push of new releases like right before the holidays, but it
Yeah.
usually slows up come October each and every year. So,
Square this month, as Pete said, is a violin album square. We're doing like a three album set to end the year. One each show representing connecting to one of our traits. So we had the yacht fusion show with Pete. We have the violin show with Eric, and then next month will be a show that loosely relates to me. But this is Eric's show. So let's kick it off with Eric. What is your number four?
talk about the
Well,
guns
I
first, though.
should be a little embarrassed, George, because I only have two of the four. Um, but thank you. I'm very excited that you put this together. And I really like hearing new artists. So these, a couple of them, like I said, I have not heard before. I am going with Michal Urbaniak at four. The album is Fusion 3. Um, and I really like this record. I think the electric keys and bass were outstanding. Obviously, the violin, what draws me in, a lot of up-tempo tunes. The problem with this one for me out of the gate, and then we'll talk about the good stuff, was there are, I guess, vocalizations would be the best way to put it. I believe it's his wife who actually has a very good voice, but sometimes the way it's used
She will kind of sing along or vocalize along with the harmony, which that part is fine, but there's a few spots in here where she kind of goes off to the left with whatever you want to call it, and we'll talk about those. But the music is excellent. I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've got Steve Gadd, John Abercrombie, Anthony Jackson all appear on this record. Very funky. The opening Chinatown Part 1, great lead work. I love the keys in here. I think like I said, where she will vocalize with the melodies, and that really doesn't distract me. I don't mind it. And George and I talked about that a little bit before, but there are a few spots. I think Crazy Kid, that one could cause seizures. As you listen to that one, that I don't get what's going on there or why it's going on. But if I could have this, as I talked about, I think previously, I don't remember if it was a prog seat show or a fusion show. If I could have a mixing board and kind of bring the faders down on certain sections, like I said, I love the music here. I think I want to talk you. Prehistoric Bird has really great keys and bass, and I know this is a violin, but I think the bass playing really impressed me on this record. There was a lot of stuff. I think my favorite track was Stretch, and that's kind of getting towards the end. Again, very funky. The bass playing catches my ear, fiery violin. I think there's some decent keyboard solos in here as well. Metroliner was another ripper. And like I said, I removed the vocals on this one, and I think we may be climbing the ladder a bit. And then the closing Chinatown, I hate to focus on the negative, but that's almost like screaming in that one. And I just, that makes it tough for me on some of the songs. But otherwise, and like I said, take that out. I thought she had a really good voice when you're just kind of listening to her go along with the melodies. But like I said, I think musically this is an extremely strong record. It's something I would go back to, even with the vocalizing that goes on in there. It's really good stuff. But I'm going to go with Michal Urbaniak at number 4.
Len, what do you think?
Oh, wow, George, you set us a difficult task this time. Every album's fabulous. I love them all. So my ratings are not going to mean that much. So I'll just have to start somewhere. Now, I remember listening to the Italian band Electric Arc some time back. Another band, like most of these bands that have violins, I always hark back to Mahavishnu because they were the ultimate band, so to speak, And the violin player was Carlo Cantini. So I then looked around and found his stuff, and that's how I discovered Heptagon, from 2022. And I was really impressed. Lots of those odd times, that Mahavishnu used to have, and all that unison playing, and it was just fantastic. I just loved it so much. And this guy apparently makes his own violins and sells them in Italy. So he's really into the violin. That'd be of interest to you, Eric. Yeah. So all those things, that McLaughlin did in those days, the Carnatic rhythms, the Indian influences, it's all there. It's just amazing. Unstable Vector. I love that track because it's got that really fast unison playing, a jazzy feel, and some nice piano as well. Heptagon is kind of a funky tune and a very good drum solo. And Root Hypnotic is kind of slow. I love the electric bass on this one. Fiorenzo, what's his name? If I can get it right. Fiorenzo Deliga on the electric bass. Very, very good band, this. Pietro Benucci on the drums, and of course Carlo Cantini on the violin, and Mario Lino Rossi on the keyboards. So it's a very nice band. So I put them at number 5. I think we've got 5 choices, haven't we? 5. Yeah. Anyway, as I said, my ratings don't mean that much.
Pete, what's your 4?
All right, so two of these I've had for a long time, so I was really familiar with them. The other two I had never heard before. So the El Subramaniam Spanish Wave, how does he say his name? Subramaniam?
Subramaniam.
Subramaniam. I'd never heard that before, and I had never heard the Urbaniak before, although I have the first Fusion album that he did. I would say these are all really, really good. And I had a real hard time with this, but something's got to go somewhere, right? So I went with Spanish Wave by Subramaniam as my number 4. I mean, and from 1983, this is a little bit later than the other three. Quite the cast here. Cool album cover. You got Stanley Clarke on here. You got George Duke appears on a couple tracks. Larry Coryell. Tom Scott is all over this thing. Jorge Struns is on here from Struns and Farrow. Great guitar player. Alfonso Johnson, Ron Wagner. The list goes on and on. There's some like the title track's got some really nice flamenco flavors, which I really, really like a lot. And Tom Scott is on almost every song, and he's either playing sax or flute or lyricon. To me, he's almost the star of the show here, even though there's plenty of violin. I mean, I think Tom Scott is just excellent on this record. Ninth House, again, got soaring violin, got sax, got vibes on here. Nice guitar solo from Coryell. Winter in Austria reminds me of the band Oregon. In fact, there's a few tracks on this album that have that kind of like chamber jazz thing that Oregon used to do. There's a couple tracks, that one in particular. Seventh Heaven is good. You got flutes and violin, guitars, vibes, drums, all kind of going, following each other and doing some cool stuff. The percussion's really good on the album. Chameleon is a great track. Got Stanley Clarke doing a great bass solo on that. Tom Scott's on that one as well. You and Me, that doesn't do much for me. Dancing Beauty is pretty good. You got Kim Menzer plays flute on that particular track, and a great George Duke electric piano solo on that one. In fact, I wish there was more George Duke on this album, to be quite honest with you. I think even though like obviously the leader of this group or this album is a violin player, and there's violin all over the album, to me, this is more of like an ensemble album. And I think it works really, really well. And everybody gets to shine, especially I think to me, Tom Scott is the star of the show on this album. He's just doing all sorts of great stuff. Some of the other guys are amazing too, but he's like featured on the whole album. Whereas like, you get a Stanley Clarke on 1 or 2 tracks, you get George Duke on 2 tracks. They wow every time you hear them, but every song has got that amazing violin and then whatever it is that Tom Scott's playing. So I really like this. I don't think there's a bad album in this bunch at all. They're all really, really good. It almost pained me to put this one here at number 4, but it's my number 4.
Yeah, I would agree. I felt pain putting Urbaniak at 4 because I really like this album. Despite other than what Eric said, there's no way he should have I guess it's your wife, you can't say no, but you can't have an unaccompanied vocal solo as one of the tracks on a Fusion album. It just doesn't go. Her on the songs, I can deal with that, but the unaccompanied solo track, that holds this album down a little bit. But some of the better tracks, Kujawiak Goes Funky, that's one of the best songs. Nice soloing from the keyboardist Wlodek Golgowski, as well as Urbaniak. Roxana is really cool. That's one of the songs that she's doing unisons with her voice, and actually I think does a short solo, and it's actually pretty cool. The more she stays in the pocket, I like it. When she tries to take it out a little bit, that's when things go south.
And George, that one kind of really gets going, I think, once the band really kicks in, right? That gets legs as you get into that song.
Yeah, that is a builder. There's a couple tracks like that in this album. Like Eric said, my favorite track's Prehistoric Bird, a rare bass solo from Anthony Jackson, and you got Mr. Gadd does some drum breaks on that, so that's a real good one. Bloody Kishka got the guest solo from Larry Coryell. That's never a bad thing. He's ripping on this. It's weird that he guests on 2 of these albums. Kind of an odd coincidence.
Yep. I thought so too.
Cameo takes the foot off the gas a little bit, but it's a good little ballad. Metroliner kind of reminds me of Ponty tune. Kind of sounds like cut out of that cloth. And yeah, the like Eric mentioned, the closer, a little too much vocalization there, but really this is a very consistent record. Um, he had some good records around this time, but this is the best one that I've heard, mostly due to the sideman work. The sideman work on this is excellent. Anthony Jackson and that bass line on Prehistoric Bird, that is just killer.
Yep.
I think
recommend-
Abercrombie's ripping on this album too.
Right.
Yeah, I got a little problem with his tone on a couple of these tracks. One of the late tracks on the album might be the last tune or one before last. It's got some kind of echoey, warbly thing going on.
Yeah, on Metroliner, he's doing like a rock bass solo, and it's definitely got something. I don't mind it, but yeah, it's definitely it almost like it doesn't fit, but it's still pretty regardless.
Weird choice, but yeah, he rips, of course. So I recommend all these albums, but this one definitely people should look into. Fusion 3. Eric?
Yeah, I feel bad about that one because obviously you and I both had that at 4, but I think musically it's very strong. So that was, I think we've all said that, how difficult it is to put.
I think it's the best thing I've put it for since like Japan 1 episode. I mean, it's really good.
That might be a good way to put it. Yeah, it was tough because musically I thought it's outstanding. So for my number 3, I'm going with Spanish Wave. The opener, the title track, fantastic. The Latin flavor, some lightning fast violin runs. Now, I'm just going to ask this off the cuff because I should have looked it up. But when I brought him up on Apple Music, because I don't own this, it has Doctor in front of his name. Doctor, do we know?
I saw that
too. A music doctor, I
He's
believe.
A music doctor. Okay. That's what I was thinking. But I said, hey, you never know,
He's trained in jazz, classical, and Carnatic music.
Okay.
All three, the master in all three.
Because that title track rips. The violin is absolutely killer on that. Love it. A lot of fast runs. Ninth House, which Coriel appears on, I think, give me vibes, and a guitar player like that, I'm game. Another terrific track any day. Winter, kind of maybe a slow, like romantic piece. Seventh Heaven kind of brings the vibes back in. I think there's flute in there as well. I love the trading off in that track. But the scatting is a no-no. Do not do that. Get that out. Again, I need my mixer so I can bring track 6 down with the vocals on it.
You want to make all these a 10 out of 10, right, Eric?
Exactly. Pete, I think you mentioned Chameleon with Stanley Clarke. Terrific. He grooves, great soloing in that. Another one where the violin smokes on this record. I mean, it really, not that it doesn't on all of them, but there were a couple songs that really caught me on this one. And I really like Dancing Beauty. Again, Pete, you already talked about this one. George Duke is fantastic on that.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely killer. Again, great music. I love this guy's violin playing. It looked like he's got a ton of records. So it's always interesting to go back. And like Pete said, this was 83. I think the rest are kind of, mid 70s-ish. But I'd be interested to check out some of his other stuff because I was really impressed with the violin playing on this and the ensemble playing too. There was just great playing all around. So that's my number 3.
He's got a different tone too than the other guys also, I kind of detected.
I don't think most of them are Western fusion. I think a lot of them are Carnatic music and classical stuff. He's got his thumb in a lot of pies.
Gotcha.
Len, what do you got at the 3 spot?
No, I'm a bit confused here. I have 5 albums listed.
Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off because you're on a roll there, but the Cantini is a separate. That's the pick at the end, the George's pick, the Obscure album.
So I've still got 4 more to go. Is that correct?
Yeah, do your 4 and 3 right now, I guess. Yeah.
All right. 4 is John LaPonte, Imaginary Voyage. Again, difficult to put it so low, or not so low, but he's one of my favorite musicians. Wonderful, wonderful playing. He released 4 albums that year in '76. And it's just quite surprising. The opening track sounds like a country hoedown. Quite different from what I'm used to listening to. Amazing sounds on it. A lot of wah-wah sounding guitar. Very impressive bass work on the album. I think, I'm not sure who was on the bass on that album, but I think it might have been Armstrong. Is that correct? Ralph
Tom
Armstrong?
Fowler.
Ah, okay. Yeah. And of course, his solos are just amazing. And the highlight of the album, I think, is the four-part title track. I like that best. Just listening right through it, it seems to have so much going on there. The rock tendencies, jazz fusion, everything, spacey guitar work. Uh, yeah, quite dramatic in some parts. So yeah, just a Ponty has always been a favorite of mine, and yeah, so that suits me in that position. As I said, it's difficult. My ratings mean nothing.
So that would be your four, really. What's your three?
My three is actually Subramaniam. Uh, all the things you've said already, this guy is incredible. I can't believe how many albums he's released. I mean, he's been a massive amount of music. And because I've always loved that Indian influence and sound and the kinetic sound, and I've got no problems with vocals either, because I do listen to quite a bit of vocals. I know George's not happy with that, but you know, it adds in and it comes in at the right time. And I think the the music is really complex, and it's really pretty full on fusion. Jorge Struns, I think he was with the band Struns and
Aldera.
yeah, that's right. Caldera, that's right.
Caldera.
George Duke, of course, another one of my favorites, and Stanley Clarke. I mean, what else do you need? And Larry Coryell, you know, just amazing players. Seventh Heaven has got that scatting vocals, percussion, odd time signatures. You know, it's to me, it's that Indian Carnatic thing at its best. It really is, because it all seems to blend in. The title track is amazing, and Tom Scott, as you've already mentioned before, is just incredible. And I recall a lot of music Tom Scott made later on kind of went over to the smooth vein, but this guy is really good on this. I think he's first class. The Dancing Beauty, that's George Duke, was on that one. And Ninth House, obviously referencing Larry Coryell. So I think it's really difficult to not have this up higher, but it's just an amazing album. And to be honest, I didn't hear this for quite some years after it was released, because you know there's so much music around, and you can't catch up with everything. It's just amazing. So yeah, I tell you what, I'll be checking out a lot more of his stuff in the near future for sure. So that's my rating.
Pete, your three?
I totally forgot Struns was in Caldera, because I think when did Struns and Farah become fairly big on the smooth jazz scene? Like mid late 80s?
Yeah, a couple years after
I always think of
Caldera.
him in that setting, and I forget that he was in Caldera before then. So yeah.
Do you remember the sax player in Caldera?
No.
That guy Steve Tabaglione that was in Gambali's band.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
He's a
Good player.
sax player.
Yeah, good player.
Excellent session player too.
Yeah.
Leone. Mm.
So I've gone back and forth between 2 and 3. I'm going to go with Michal Urbaniak Fusion 3 at number 3. Like I said, I had never heard this before. There's some absolutely ferocious stuff on this record. I think Chinatown Part 1 is amazing. Abercrombie's just ripping on that. Urbaniak sounds great. I love Kuyaviak, or however you say it, goes funky. Great synth solos on that. I love the bass. I love the violin. Roxanne is kind of a fun, quirky tune, but yeah, those weird vocals are a little bizarre. But I mean, musically, it's great. The violin soars, and that's got a great electric piano solo on it, which I really dig a lot. Uh, I don't know what Crazy Kid is trying to be. what a waste of space that is. Just get that off of this album. It doesn't fit. It's no good. It's weird and it's bizarre. And that's probably because I was going to rank this higher. But some of these vocalizations, I don't mind them in a couple spots, but some of them are just like, ooh. Prehistoric Bird, though, absolute monster track. I mean, it's funky, it's complex, it's ripping, it's the killer synth solo. The grooves are great, really, really good. I love Abercrombie's guitar solo on that. Really, might be one of my favorite songs across all these albums. Just really, really good. I like Bloody Kishka is really cool. Coriel's great on that. Cameo is pretty good, not too bad. I like Stretch a lot. And I like Metroliner. I don't know. I think this is a really, really good album. I think it's mostly all killer, couple little filler pieces, but otherwise, really, really good. And like I said, I'll be trying to track down a copy of this because I have his other Fusion album, which came out a couple of years beforehand, but I never picked this one up. And I love the cast. Great players on here, and I think great playing on it.
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of these Wounded Bird reissues that it went out of print and now you got to chase it around.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah.
My number three is the Subramaniam. Um, it's a weird way you find some albums. Like I was looking at my collection one day, I don't know, probably 5, 6 years ago, and noticing a real dearth in 1983 for whatever reason. So I start looking at some charts for 83 Fusion just to see, am I missing something? And this was on there and I checked, so I went and checked it out and I was like, wow, look at this lineup, you know? So then I grab it and just the first track, the title track opener, Spanish Wave, that rules. I mean, it's just a great track. Cool solo from Jorge Struns. And you got Ninth House, another excellent tune. Fantastic soloing vehicle. And you get vibes, sax, Larry Coryell on guitar, and a ridiculous solo from Subramaniam. I mean, I think that's the best solo on the album. Really good stuff. And it's the Fusion guys love this. They think it's cute. The track, it's a play on 11th house, but it's also a play on the fact that it's in 9. They love to put the time signature in the title. Um, yeah, Winter in Austria is a ballad, kind of like classical meets soundtrack. I actually like it. It's pleasant, but it's kind of a momentum speed bump after those first 2 songs. You're like, man, this is really good. And then kind of like, oh, are we up to one of these songs already? It's kind of like that, a little bit of a letdown, but it's Seventh Heaven, another odd metered soloing vehicle. Larry Coryell on guitar again. That's great. Chameleon, Haunting. You got George Duke and Stanley Clark both take smoking solos. That's one of the better tracks on here also. You and Me is another ballad. Maybe a little more of a traditional ballad than Winter in Austria. A little more successful too, I think, but not a standout. It's the thing with this album is the upbeat stuff, the soloing vehicles. Those are the really good ones. So, I mean, I wish this was a little longer, 7 tracks. That's kind of an issue for me. I was like, man, I want more of this. But yeah, it's a really good album that again, you're gonna have to discogs it because it had a short run and all gone by now, but really good album. El Subramaniam. Eric?
So my number two, this I had, we always have trouble with the ranking. I had trouble with everything, and I was trying to weigh the likes and dislikes on the albums. And like we said, I definitely like all 4 of these. There's just certain things. Um, I went with Jan Hammer, and this is one of the ones that I owned. Oh yeah, from 1976. Steve Kindler on violin. Hammer, of course, amazing keyboard player. The opening Magical Dog is just absolutely powerful. It's a ripping opener, keys and violin, just so tight. Um, and then the misstep, we get the really cheesy lyrics of One to One, but I like the song. I like the funky feel of that song. It's just, that the the lyric, even with the vocal, which again, I wouldn't say that the singing is bad. It's just, I don't know, just comes off a little cheesy to me. I love the Rhodes on the intro to Evolve. The title track, very funky and groovy. Let the Children Go is another one. Like, come on, guys. The vocal pieces, I think, is where kind of moved this back from this could have been a number one for me. Um, Red and Orange is a great closer. And then I think you get like Bamboo Forest has that Mahavishnu Orchestra vibe in that one, kind of that, and 21, same thing, killer playing all around on that, just high energy. I'm just being honest that it's such a good record musically, and actually all four of them are. But for me, I I do like vocals. So I say it all the time, but it's like, God, though, I don't know. A bad choice on the vocal, I think, the way they're done. I don't mind the guy's voice or the voices that are being sung on here. And like I said, this is an absolutely killer instrumental stuff, just like the other two were that I talked about. But I think that misstep or two had to put this one at number two versus the number one. So Jan Hammer at number two for me.
Len?
Yeah, I've got to go with Urbaniak on number two. 1975, great stuff. Again, there's a relationship to what Mahavishnu did, I think, way back then. Kuyak Goes Funky is an absolute killer. It's just amazing, amazing music. Now, Ursula Dudziak, I think that's his wife, I think, isn't it, that does the
Yeah.
vocals?
Yes.
Well, she reminds me a little bit of Flora Purim, who I'm a very big fan of because the first time I've heard her was with Chick Corea, Return to Forever. And I don't mind the scatting and the vocals. They sound pretty good. Her vocalizing on Roxana, that's pretty amazing, really quite amazing. Now, John Abercrombie, legend. The tune, I think, you mentioned that earlier, Bloody Kishka. What a rocker. Abercrombie is just something else. And the synth playing reminds me a little bit of Jan Hammer. There's a bit of synth in there, but you're quite nice. So yeah, overall, I'd say this is an excellent album. I found the actual sound, the recording sound, a little bit screechy. I don't know why, but maybe it was high. I don't know, something to do with the recording. But anyway, that's my number two, Michal Urbaniak, Fusion from 1975.
Pete?
Just want you to know I just scored a copy of the Urbaniak.
Nice.
This guy. So wow, be on its way to me. Yeah.
Fast work, Pete. Fast
I
work.
didn't waste any time. I was like, George is like, oh, I think because there's not many copies out there on CD. So
No, they're usually, but there was one I saw, it was like 18 or something.
it was $17. Yeah. So I was like, and it was here in the States. So I was like, oof, all right. So I didn't want to let that go. So that's mine. Anyway, I'm gonna go with Oh Yeah by Jan Hammer Group as my number two. And I'm gonna echo everything that Eric said. Take off those two cringy vocal tunes. This is a monster album. Monster album. I mean, Magical Dog. So good. I mean, the violin and synth trade-offs, the great wild drumming from Tony Smith and Fernando Saunders, great on this album. What a great track. 1-to-1. You're right. It's kind of funky. Musically, it's not bad. The lyrics and the vocal style, it's no good.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Pete, because the lyrics are a big part of that. They're tough. They're tough.
Yeah, I mean, let the children grow. I mean, why do some of these bands and artists insist? Maybe it was the record companies, but insist on putting these like insipid like pop tunes on these instrumental fusion records. I just don't get it. I mean, then that was worse. I don't like that one at all. But
It would be
Red and Orange.
If it had ever worked once, that would be one thing where they could say, what about that time?
None of them work, right? None of them.
Yeah, there's no number one vocal fusion hits out there, right?
No.
It's like, because maybe they felt that, well, but George Duke and Stanley Clarke had a little bit of success, but I think that was even later, right? When did they have those couple big hits on the Duke Clarke albums? That's later than this, right?
Yeah.
Much later. Yeah.
Yes. I don't get it at all. But yeah, Evolve is great. Jesus. Bamboo Forest totally has that Mahavishnu feel on like, the kind of the mellower atmospheric kind of
What
way.
is it like Dance of the Maya? What's the one that
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
okay? Because I was trying to, I didn't want to go listen, but I'm like, that just has that kind of hypnotic
yeah. And then
flow.
21 though is total Mahavishnu too, from the more like kind of savage, energetic side of things. I'm like, oh, so good. So I mean, this is like Eric said, this could have been number one with like one or two other like-minded instrumental songs and get rid of these vocal pieces. Because this is, I mean, it's probably my favorite Jan Hammer album, and it easily could have been number one, but I had to knock it back a peg just because of those two tracks. So yeah.
All right. My number two is Imaginary Voyage. My second favorite Ponty album, actually. And everybody likes Cosmic Messenger more. I mean, I like this one. Uh, New Country, that was actually a FM hit for him. And yeah, it's like a hoedown song, but it's actually cool. I mean, shouldn't be, but it is. It's a good tune. Catchy, foot stomper. I mean, just a good track all around. Um, can't read this. Oh, The Gardens of Babylon, another good tune. Actually, the whole first side. This is like a recent prog seat that we had, where it was like there was an album, Tarkus actually, that
Yep.
was a real epic on one side, and the other side is kind of a different thing. This is kind of like that, except I think these first side songs are really good, except for Wandering on the Milky Way as unaccompanied violin solo. I don't know. I don't see the point of an unaccompanied solo from a guy that's soloing over every song. I,
George, let that beautiful violin flow over you.
yeah,
I think it works better on a live album, I think.
True.
yeah. Unaccompanied solos on studio albums, yeah, that does usually bother me. So you're probably right. Once
But did
upon
you
a
see, so not to go, because again, folks haven't watched the show yet, but one of the points I made on this Prog Seat show, which is airing on Tuesday, is that I compared Tarkus to Genesis Foxtrot, where on Foxtrot you have all these really strong songs on side one leading into the big epic on side two. And you could argue that maybe the closing epic is the strongest song on the album, or that some of the stuff on side one are just as strong. Whereas with Tarkus, we were talking about how the band basically blows their whole wad on side one, and side two's got some subpar material, right? So it's almost like, and some of the guys on the panel feel that like you should start an album off really strong, but I also feel you don't want to lose the listener halfway through side two. Imaginary Voyage doesn't do that because you've got this great epic on side two, but side one is really, really strong as well.
Yeah, they did most of this stuff. They took most of these tracks out with them on this tour, so they were confident in these songs. Tarantula is another good one. All those songs are good, they're fine, but for me, it's all about the epic title track, Imaginary Voyage. This song is fantastic. Part one is just incredible. Unison runs, uh, just the joint arrangement of it, hyper speed stuff, start and stop. It's just incredible. Part two is a soloing vehicle, really good solos. Part three is the main melody line in that is so beautiful. It's like I think it's harkens back to Ponty's classical background. It's really great stuff. Part four, it's kind of like just a outro. Probably could have been a little shorter, but great soloing from Ponty and Daryl Sturmer.
Yeah.
Just I was actually going to let the thing that puts this over the top of three and four for me is that epic. That epic is just too good. Um, one of his best songs that he ever. So I had it at number two. Eric, talk about your number one.
All right. Well, you can leave your image up. I'm going with Mr. Ponty. Len, I think, did you mention he had three releases? And I know Aurora's 76 as well, right?
And the live album too, wasn't it?
The
76.
Is it the live
No,
album?
no, that's live album's a couple years later.
Was it later?
What else did he do? King Kong, maybe? Something like
Oh, was it
no.
the Zappa? The King Kong?
26, I got that he released 4 albums. including
Uh,
this.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, I love the lineup. You got Tom Fowler, Mark Craney, who played with Tull for a little bit on drums, Alan Zavad, and our buddy Daryl Sturmer, who went on to join Genesis. Um, I really like this. I want to give Ponty credit because he doesn't have anyone screeching or yelling or hollering over this one. So that gave him a few points over the other guys. And I agree with you guys. I do like side one. I mean, New Country, I kind of look at it as maybe like a Dregsy thing. You know, the Dregs always threw a lot of country in their stuff, but they're also very fusiony and very complex. I love the melody of Gardens of Babylon. I dug Wandering of the Milky Way or Wandering on the Milky Way. It's got a lot of delay and reverb on the violin, but I really enjoy it. Once Upon a Dream is a little moodier, but I think the synth and the violin taking leads in this one are really nice. Tarantula is where it grabs me, I guess, maybe. Not that the songs preceding it have any issues. It's just all of a sudden Tarantula's like, okay, yeah, now they're rocking, they're moving. And then you get, you know, as George kind of broke down the epic, the part one is just a great intro. The band absolutely cooks on that one. You know, part two, I think, slows things down a little bit, but that's the whole point, right? You've got this whatever 18, I don't even know how long the track is, 20-minute track, and you've got to you got to have some variations in mood and you know, you're changing tempos and atmosphere and things like that. Part three is another one with a killer lead, some awesome flourishes and motifs in that. And four, like you said, I think Sturmer really steps up and puts a wicked guitar solo. There's some great keyboard licks in that. I love the epic. So you get Tarantula in the epic, and to me, it's as you said, you want to hit people, you know, out of the gate, but you got to have something left in the tank, and the tank is on full when you get to side two. So I dig the epic. I love Ponty this era. We've all talked about, you know, that good stretch of albums that he had, but I got to go with Ponty at number one.
So here's Ponty at 76. So they released a self-title on Liberty EMI, a self-titled release called Jean-Luc Ponty. Not really sure what that's all about. Aurora came out on Atlantic in 76, Imaginary Voyage on Atlantic 76. Blue Note released an archival album called Cantaloupe Island from 69, and then some other thing called Jean-Luc Ponty meets Giorgio Gaslini, probably a classical thing.
Busy
So
man.
yeah, so again, I mean, some of it's probably archival, but still, he was pretty busy. And then, I mean, Enigmatic Ocean was 77, Cosmic Messenger 78, Taste of Passion 79, the live album 79, and plus on Upon the Wings of Music was 75. So this guy was like rocking and rolling for those couple of years there.
Great period.
Yeah.
And what's your number one?
Number one, oh yeah, Jan Hammer. I remember when this came out in 1976, 1976. I hadn't actually started my work on radio. I didn't start till 79. And I had this huge collection of Fusion LPs, which I still have. And that's why I went on radio. And when on the first program ever, I played this and I played American Garage from Pat Metheny. I'll never forget that. Just one of my favorite albums. But yeah, Jan Hammer, after Mephisto, just before he collaborated with Jeff Beck, I actually saw that band here in Melbourne, Jeff Beck and Jan Hammer. It was totally killing. It's just incredible. The intensity with Hammer, and at the same time, he creates this atmosphere as well with his synth playing, you know, and all the different instruments he uses. And if you listen to some of his more quieter albums, that atmosphere he manages to create is just part of his whole, I suppose, how he composes his music. Magical Dog is absolutely in your face. That's, you know, it is just the best fusion thing I've ever heard. I think it was my album of the year at that time anyway. Red and Orange, another favorite of mine, but that also appears on the John Abercrombie album Timeless, and completely different version, but just as beautiful as as it is. Uh, the drums, percussion, they go crazy with this music. Uh, Bamboo Forest, again, talking about that atmospheric sound. It's there, very much funky, very much percussive. And 21 is just fast and furious. It's crazy. And about those vocals, I agree. I think they were kind of ill placed, and you say a little bit cheesy. Although I do listen to vocal music, but sometimes it just doesn't seem to be in the right place at the right time. So yeah, so that's my number one. One of my favorite albums ever. Yep.
Pete?
By the way, guys, I've got a fading power problem here. So if something goes off, you'll know what's happened, okay?
Okay.
Pete, what's your number one?
Well, by process of elimination, it's Imaginary Voyage. I mean, I absolutely love this era of Jean-Luc Ponty. It's it's hard to top some of this stuff. And what a lineup on this album. Every album in this period, he's got like great musicians. Some of them appear on multiple records. I think, Alan Zavad is such a perfect fit for his violin style. I've been, a guy talking positively about Daryl Stuermer for ages. And I know we don't need to bring it up in this program, but I just find it amazing that he was just like a live sideman for Genesis for all those years, and they didn't utilize him on their albums. Even really didn't even utilize him to the fullest on the road either, if you ask me, because I think he's just such an amazing player. Again, and he plays on some of these fusion albums, and he's more of a rock guy, but he fits right in here. Fowler's great. Mark Craney's great on here. I love New Country. Like you mentioned, it's a great hoedown. I think the violin work is absolutely enchanting. And how about those acoustic picking from Sturmer, who does some really nice acoustic playing on a couple tracks on here. Again, on Guards of Babylon, he does that as well. Really good. I love the piano from Zavad on that. So good. Um, I like Wandering the Milky Way solo too. It's not that long, and it's just kind of haunting and all these effects. It's really kind of cool sounding. Yeah, it's kind of weird having like an accompanied violin solo on a studio album, but I don't really mind it all too much. And I love Once Upon a Dream. The synth playing from Zavad is so good on that. And Tarantula is just absolutely killer. I mean, Sturmer. If you go, I actually earlier today when I was re-listening to it, I went and looked at the timer to see exactly how long Sturmer's solo is. It's like 2 minutes long, and he's ripping the entire time. It's just so good, and the title track is classic. And George and Eric both mentioned how each piece, part of the title track, because it's 4 parts, each piece or section is so different than the one that came before. The transitions are really good. And I especially love parts 3 and 4. Part 4 is again more of kind of like a vamp that's going on, allowing them to solo. And I would argue, as great as this is on the studio record, I love parts 3 and 4 on the live album as well. And you got some different players on there as well, because you don't have Sturmer on there. You got Jamie Glazer and the other guys his name is escaping me at the moment.
Joaquin Libano.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. And I don't remember is that Jamie who plays the solo on that, the outro solo on Imaginary Voyage
I
on
think
the
it's
live album?
Joaquin.
It's Joaquin. Okay. Regardless, it's
So
amazing. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is a drop dead classic album. There's not a weak moment on it for me. So basically, I put this over the Jan Hammer strictly because of those 2 vocal tunes on that album, but they're both amazing. All 4 of these records are amazing. So, but yeah, Jan Hammer. I mean, Jean-Luc Ponty, my number one.
I went with the Hammer. The Hammer has something the other ones don't have for me, which is 3 just drop dead blasters. I mean, Magical Dog is one of my all-time 70s fusion tracks. That track you can't do better as an album opener. It's impossible. It's nuclear. Uh, it's so good. The best for my favorite, probably my favorite tune out of all these albums, unless maybe it's Imaginary Voyage. It's kind of hard to compare an epic to a normal length track. 1-to-1, I'm gonna surprise you and say I don't mind that song at all. I don't, but I didn't listen to the lyrics because I never do. So I don't know how stupid they are. But as a song, it's one of those 70s funk tunes. It's the melody's pleasant. The guy's voice, I think it's Fernando Saunders.
Oh, is it
Not a
Saunders?
bad-
Okay.
I think so. Not a bad song. Uh, Evil
Well,
Love.
George, keep not listening to the lyrics, and
Yeah, probably
good
a good
choice.
idea. Evil Love and Oh Yeah, both solid tunes, but I'm just when I listen to those, I'm kind of waiting to get to Bamboo Forest and especially 21. 21 is another one of the nuclear songs on here. Solo from Hammer is just crazy. The rhythm section work too. There's a part later in the track where they start speeding up at random, and it's just incredible what Tony Smith and Fernando Saunders are, the way they hang together. It's incredible. Let the Children Grow is just terrible. I mean,
Yeah, it's no good.
it's vile. I mean, it's a different singer. I couldn't find in the credits who it is. It doesn't really say, but whoever it is, I hope he quit after that because that's no good. It's just not good. This shouldn't be on here. Could have replaced it with so many songs that he's done before that would have been better. Something from the Goodman and Hammer album. I don't know. Red and Orange, just another one of those great, great, great songs. It was also, like Len said, it was on that other album. It was also on Charlie Mariano's Hell and 12 Trees album. So
Oh, yeah.
apparently really loved this song. He likes to cart it around all these sessions with him. And I agree with him. It's a great, great song. It's great playing by everybody. Another thing about this album is I like Kindler's sound better than all these other violin players sound. Seems the most natural, like got the least rigs effects on it. I don't know if that's true or not, but something really appeals to me about his sound on this record. Uh, so it's shocking for me to pick a album with two vocal songs at my number one, but it's just one of those cases where the three really, really killer songs just through the roof. So it had to be my number one.
Good choice. As I said, they were misplaced.
Yeah, Let the Children Go should have been placed in the bin. Maybe put 1 to 1 like next to last or something. Then it looks a lot better. What are you gonna do? Well, George's pick, Carlo Cantini Quartet. I came upon this on your show, Len. You played one of the tracks,
Yep.
and I tracked it down. Hadn't heard of the guy. I looked him up. He used to play with Trilok Gertu, I guess.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. It's tough to come by. There's an Italian import, but that's like the only way to get it is from Italian sites. I've not gotten a hard copy yet, but very interesting album. Maybe the boys remember there was a track from this on the 2022 compilation CD that we do on the year-end show. What did you think, Eric?
I really like this one. You said 2022, right? Is when this came out.
Yeah.
And I know Len talked about this first. Unsable Vector is fantastic. Amazing violin. Who's the bass player on this? Because the bass playing is killing me on that. And actually on quite a bit of the record. Do you guys know the bass player on this?
Uh, some Italian dude.
Because I mean, really stands out. I mean, I'm sitting here. George gives me 5 violin albums to listen to, so I'm enjoying the month as usual. And I'm hearing this bass playing, and I'm like, wow, this guy's terrific.
The bass player's name is Fiorenzo del Gatti. I think so you said.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
I mean, I was really impressed. The title track, again, I think the band really pops on that one. I love the piano. There's a little drum solo in there and then some spacey synth but that song is excellent. And I think speaking of the bass player, was it Equilateral Room? That's another one where he just really stood out to me. Um, a good melody on that one, some nice violin and piano, really nice runs in there too. So fantastic. And I think Ground Zero had some vibes. And another fantastic violin performance. I really like the violin playing on this one. Not that I didn't on all the others, but really terrific. And I think that Root Hypnotic, that title works perfect for that because that is kind of a hypnotic trance kind of feel to that track. I did think kind of the back end of the album, the last few songs, maybe lost me a little bit, but overall, really good record. Really enjoyed this. And again, where would I come across this except for a George's pick? I would have, I would have never found or heard of this guy. So, good call on this one, George.
Yeah, definitely underheard album slash guy.
Well, if you want to hear more of his playing, check out the Italian band Electric Arc. That's where I found it. And they've got a couple of which you should check out. They're pretty good.
Thank you. Thanks, hon.
What did you think of it, Pete?
Yeah, I like this. The violin is really the star on this album, but kind of like what Eric said with the bass playing, I found myself really drawn to the drummer on this album, who I think does a fantastic job. You guys know me. I don't generally listen to or pay attention to drummers all that much. Of course, I've got starting November 1st, a whole month of drum shows that I got to do, which is going to be interesting. But Pietro Benucci, I mean, he's really good. He's great on Unstable Vector. Really good. Do you guys hear a little electric band on that song? Just a little bit? I get a little
Maybe
bit band vibes in certain spots on that. I love it. Really good. Uh, I think Eric mentioned how the back end of the album starts to there's a few tracks on here that are a little too kind of atmospheric and just kind of laid back, I think. Like the Embrace of Renee, Newton. I mean, they're nice enough, but they don't really do a lot for me. But Equilateral Room is really good. Great piano, great drum, and great violin. Ground Zero and Root Hypnotic both have some prog elements to me. Like Ground Zero, I hear it's like symphonic, kind of like prog, and then the synth work on Root Hypnotic sounds like something off of a prog album, which is pretty neat, a little different. I like it. I think it was good. Playing is great. Good, memorable songs. Like I said, a couple tracks don't really work for me, but the rest of it's really good. I'm glad I heard it.
Yeah, I'll echo you guys. Unstable Vector, killer, punchy opener. Newton's one of my favorites, actually. I like that song. Great melody. The title track for me, though, that's the best song. That's the longest track and one where they kind of stretch out stuff. It's really great song. Like Pete said, Embrace of Renee is the softy, probably the least appealing song on here for me. Ground Zero's great melody, almost soundtrack-ish, cinematic kind of thing. It's got a soprano sax solo on that one, I guess. I don't know who does it. Root Hypnotic has got kind of a dark vibe. The Closer, Gentle Paint, it's a weird title. That's a little bit weird. That's got accordion and harmonica on it. That's not a good combo. That's a one that I generally skip.
One of Pete's favorites too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I didn't even mention it.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on here? The accordion's on the next to last song too. That was okay, but when he combined the two, I was like, nah, this is a step too far.
Oh, maybe that's the Italian influence, right? You get the accordion. I mean, that comes out a lot in the Italian music.
I did appreciate though that they added some additional instrumentation on the back half of the album. Like one song's got the sax solo in it, and then those songs they tried to do some different stuff because it is a long album, like 62 minutes or something. But yeah, Gentle Paint and Embrace of Renee are about the only songs that I don't think are quite good on here. So I think it's a really successful album. One of those things I have not gotten around to ordering. I've just been working off files, but really good album. People should check it out.
Cool. So, what are we doing next month, George?
Next month, is actually an idea from my best friend or one of my friends. I forget exactly who. One of my friends was like, we're talking about some album. He's like, I can't believe you haven't had that on the show yet as one of the albums in the squares. And then we started talking about this is one of those beer conversations, I think. What are the best albums that haven't showed up in the squares yet? And I'm like, okay, like that's a kind of an interesting topic. So it's my favorite albums that have yet to show up on the show yet.
So no real connection thematically or by country
No,
or
just
anything like
that
that.
my favorites that have yet to make the show, and now they're
Gotcha.
going to be
They didn't
in a
fit
certain.
in any one little topic, so here they are. Wow, that's cool.
We're 2.5 years in, so some of them you're going to be like, how has this not been in there? But they have been. So
Well, they all relate, usually the shows, right? So maybe it was just something where it was difficult for you to connect four together, right? So
yeah,
it's good to
honestly, I've
do
been
that
trying to
too.
put this Jan Hammer album for a while. I've tried to get a keyboardist as leader square going for at least a year. I've been turned down by several keyboard players who I won't mention, but it's just been a real bear. I had wanted to get it in because I think it's underappreciated, but so albums just fall through the cracks like that.
Look forward to the next show, George. A few surprises
Yeah,
there.
as of right now, I don't have any ideas for a guest. We may go trio for that one, unless somebody comes to mind that I think is a good fit for it.
Okay. We'll trust in George, I guess.
Right.
Because, right, Gary, George knows, right?
Yeah, Gary will say, just go trio. The trio, as long as the trio's there, I don't care.
Well, I look forward to getting the album assignments from George in the coming days. We'll probably have it later today or tomorrow, I would assume.
Yes.
So we have plenty of time. Yeah. So, and Len, as always, great having you on the show. Thanks for joining
Thank
me.
you,
I
Len.
know it's always a kind of a challenge to get you on due to the time
Yeah,
differences and whatnot, but I'm glad you were able to make it here this morning.
really appreciate you asking. It's just a lot of fun. I just love it. Yeah.
Awesome. So thanks for watching, everybody. So again, as always, you have the four albums. Rank them as you like them. Hopefully, you've had a chance to check some of them out if you're experiencing them for the first time. Take some time, listen to them, and let us know what you think down there in the comments below. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together, all the damn
All the
time.
damn time.
Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Please tell your friends if you're a Fusion fan and you have other people that you know that love Fusion, please spread the word of 4Fusion Friday. All right, because we love your views. We love the passion that the audience gives us about all this great music. But we know there's other Fusion fans out there. So spread the word, send them here, first Friday of every month, and we'll see you next time here on 4Fusion Friday. For Len Davis, Eric Porter, and George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Coming up, we've got the UK connection happening tomorrow. Check that out. And then, of course, we'll be doing ranking the albums on Sunday. I will be ranking the catalog of the UK hard rock band Babe Ruth. So that's coming up this weekend. So stay tuned for that and more. I'm Pete Pardo. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.